So my name is Liana Wallace. Sani is my Tlingit name. Sani yuchat duasach, yechner hasati ak kwan. Ayayet yechtehit. In Tlingit, I told you my Tlingit name is Sani, and I am Ak Kwan, and that I come from the Big Dipper house. So I'm from here. I'm from Ak Bay. My father is Wishkiton. He's Eagle, and their families shared this land with us. And I am Clean 80, and I come from the Big Dipper house. And I was raised on a 42-foot trolling boat, 5 children. That's a lot of children for a 42-foot boat. And we also loaded up our groceries and everything for about 10 days. So we have a hatch, and that hatch was a big compartment in the deck where all our groceries would go in. And we had to ration our food too, so couldn't eat up everything during the first couple days, or we wouldn't. There's no store out there. So as you're heading out the road and going past Tea Harbor, and then starting to head out to Sunshine Cove, and then going into Echo Cove or Echo Bay, you come to a place that we call Burners Bay. So we'd go there and camp out, and there's lots of berries out there, and there's different times of the year where you'd gather certain things. I went out there last year and I gathered the roots from Devil Club, and that's really powerful medicine. You don't just take it any old time like tea, or it's a real powerful medicine. And you would gather that when the skunk cabbage was about a foot tall. You could tell that the ground was thawed out enough to dig for the root. I went out there with my great granddaughter, who probably was third grade when she was out there too. And if you go out there today, it's so green, and that's the first place where the hooligan come in, and then the herring come in. The petroglyphs are there to mark the spot and to tell the story. Petroglyph is a rock carving, and they have different designs and stories that are carved into a rock, and it forms different stories. A lot of them have faces, and so we also have a lot of spirals. And it's our connection to the world that is below us, and then of course above us. If you ever look at a spiral, it goes up as well as it goes down. Our stories are symbolic with the petroglyph of the spirals. So if you actually go out to certain areas, like you go out to Sunshine Cove, and again, that was a village site, and there's a petroglyph that a lot of people are familiar with. And the same thing with the one at Fitz Cove. You can take a trail, go along the back loop there, and go into Fitz Cove Road. And there's a trail that you can walk down, and there's some petroglyphs that are right on the beach, and kids can look at it and follow it. But again, you'll see a lot of the faces and circles.
Thank you.
So coming in from Sunshine, getting into Tea Harbor, as you go into Tea Harbor, you'll see old pilings kind of sitting there on the beach. And that there used to be an old cannery there, and the cannery was called Libby. But my dad lived there with his family. They actually had to give up their land when Libby came in. And then supposedly it was supposed to be returned back to them, but that didn't happen. So other people came and took over. But that was a beautiful place. My dad said that they lived in houses that were on pilings as well, and they would play on the beach. And so you can go there today and you can see these old pilings. But one of the most fun activities that I remember doing, one of many, is my dad always thought he would look for hidden treasures. And our people didn't like banks a long time ago. So we used to put money in mason jars and bury it, and in coffee can, or something like that. And so wherever my dad said, oh, let's go there, so we went to the point there, and we were looking for areas that we thought were, a mason jar or a coffee can could be dug up and placed in there, but we never did find anything like that. But it was always fun to look. And you go and you can check out the petroglyphs. You can go to the one at North Douglas, go out to the point on low tide. We always go out there, but you can go out there and that's where a fort was. And you can see how the trees are growing on that. It looks like it's growing on a flat area. And that's where the fort was. And then that's just to the inside of it is Shaman Island, but on the outside is the point. And so you can see a petroglyph there too. And again, it's circular, or it has something to do with, usually by streams where there's lots of fish too as well. Different things that we don't know about. We have, there's stories about white bear, white deer, white eagle, white raven, and those are really old stories. And, so things were different a long time ago. I don't know. Sometimes you just go to an area and you can actually hear the old ones still talking, and you think about it 250 years ago, there was not very many people speaking English at certain areas of the land. So the trees only knew Tlingit. They only heard us talk in Tlingit. And so it's interesting to think about that and go, wow, this tree has never heard English before, so I'm going to talk to it. But it actually reminds you too. You can actually go, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I know many of us go, well, you don't talk to trees, but they talk to you, whether you like it or not. Their branches are holding you up. That's Walter Sobloff. I love him. He says that he was driving in one day and it was during celebration and he was getting ready to go and talk. And Walter Sobloff is Clean AD from the Angoon area, a wonderful gentleman. And he was looking at all the branches just bouncing, and the hands were holding up just like a dancer. We hold up our hands and we're like this, we're holding each other up. And he says that's what the trees were doing as he was driving into town to get ready to go and talk at the gathering, the celebration gathering. He says the trees were holding us all up, that we were surrounded by all the trees and they were all bouncing and holding us up. Montana Creek is, that's where hooligan traps were found. And it's also where hooligan, or his name was John. They gave him an English name, John, and trying to think of his Tlingit name. But he had a place there alongside Montana Creek. And that's where he stored a lot of his fish traps. So we had a lot of hooligan a long time ago. Actually, the hooligan is smaller and more slimlined. And so they got this ability to sparkle on top of the water. They're just like, because as they're moving so fast. And herring, they like to flip, it's always good because you can listen to the water and you would know, again, even if you were blind, you would know which fish it was that was out there. You'd know, like I said earlier, that the marble and roulette travels with the king salmon. So you'd see the marble and roulette and they make their sounds, but then you look down and you see the fin of a king salmon going by, and so the humpies are going around in circles, and sockeye just pop their head up once and they go back down, and dog salmon like to bounce across the water. So even from across the bay, you can look out and you can go, that's what that is, and you can hear it. We settled in a place called Seymour Canal too, and so when we were there, we had different villages there on the southern end of Admiralty Island, and on the inside there's a place called Tedman Island, but right behind that island, there's a beach where there's all kinds of bones, big, huge bones. And that's where the whales come and they beach when they are no more. That's their graveyard. Anyway, we were out there fishing one day and we came into a harbor called Sorefinger. So when the diesel engine turned off, it was just silent. And then you can start to hear the herring that was there flipping. You flip. And then the seagulls, we were noticing that it was a little strange that they were just sitting on rocks and on the beaches and stuff. And uh, that's unusual, for them to be doing that for so long. Because usually, there's heron flipping, there's feed out there. Why are they sitting on the rocks? Over time, we started to hear a sound, and it sounded like crying and we were looking, and out across the end of Seymour Canal, there's an opening, and it looked like someone had put up a big fence on the end there of Seymour Canal, a picket fence. But we continued to watch because it looked like it was getting closer, this picket fence that was coming towards us. As it got closer, we started to notice that it wasn't a picket fence. It was whales. They were right alongside each other with their dorsal fin, one up in the air, and they were traveling together. They were like a march, but it was coming in through the channel, and they were the ones making the noise. And as they approached closer and went right in front of our harbor where we were sitting with the seagulls, but as the whales went by, we could see that there was two whales that were in front of this parade, or this group of whales that were moving, and the two whales would come up and then they would come down, and then two more whales behind it would come up and then they would come down, and this went on. And then when we took our binoculars and we looked, we saw that they were transporting a dead whale. They were moving this whale by that motion and moving it to that place on the other side of Tedman Island. And the other whales, they were like saluting. They had their fins up and they were coming and they were marching. This is a true account. And so when we would come out there every year and go fishing, even after that, the whales still come up and they would rub up along the bottom side of our boat. Sometimes our boat would be just rocking back and forth because they're coming up. And then they would come up and you call it spy hopping, but the whales would come up out of the water and they would look at us, and you could see their eyeballs that are, about this big, and they'd look at you and then they go back down. And so I like to think that they were checking on us because, we were growing up out there. We're no longer the 2-year-old toddler. We're now the 7, the 9-year-old, the 10-year-old, the one that's out there doing everything on our own because we know how to do it, right? Every year we give the first fish we caught as a gift, and we'd give it to the eagle. And there was this eagle that was there on the point, and he was always sitting there and he'd wait for us. And we called him Seymour Jackson. One year, there was hardly any fish. And so we didn't catch fish right away. And you could see that eagle just looking at us. You could see its head moving back and forth, and like, where's his fish, And but we didn't have any fish to give. And so finally that eagle, he got frustrated with us, Seymour Jackson. And we have these great big huge main poles that stick out. There's 4 poles on our boat. And so Seymour Jackson came and landed at the end of the pole. And then pretty soon it went up on the cabin and it was above my head. And I remember looking at it and seeing its eyelids, 2 of them, they're open and they're blinking. And it was looking down on our deck to see if we had any fish, and but we didn't have any fish. And so the eagle took off flying, and it started soaring out on the channel a little bit more. And then we saw there was this one place where it was flying around and around and around. And so we went there. And as soon as we put our lines in, we caught salmon. And so then we were able to feed Seymour Jackson. And so it turns out that, there had been lightning earlier and the fish go deeper. And so the fish were in the dark, deeper place out there in the middle of the channel. And so, but every year we would come in, and as soon as Seymour Jackson saw our boat coming, he would take up off of the point. He no longer sat there and waited. He would go out flying and soaring around, And then he would show us where the fish was. This is a fishing secret. People want to know, why did the Alarita, which is the name of our boat, why did we always catch lots of fish? And that's because we had partners. And we fed that eagle, and that eagle fed us. And every year, that eagle would wait for us. That was Seymour Jackson. And we'd fish with the whales, and we'd fish with the other fish, and we just knew that traditional knowledge about our environment.